Welcome back. In case you're just joining us, you're finding us at the tail end of this conversation, police brutality. Charles Owino, Mr. Charles Owino, we talked about how we also need to start having a different change in how we see our officers. I see a policeman, I should see a sense of security. You gave an example of my pass. Nevertheless, at the end of the day, if you look at how certain societies uphold or treat officers, it's quite different from how we do it here in Kenya. What lessons, what do we need to borrow from them? What are they doing right in certain countries when it comes to treating their officers that we are not doing right here in Kenya?
It starts with culture.
Culture.
A police officer is an officer of the law. His duty is to enforce laws and regulations. We have too much conflict with the law as a country. We have conflict with the law starting from even when you are driving. You find we want to drive badly, we want to overtake badly, we want to obstruct. You look at the matatus, the way they behave. So it puts you in conflict with the police. So because other countries have learned to be obedient to law, they have little conflict with the police. When it comes to demonstrations, you go to a place like the UK, you don't demonstrate everywhere. They have a particular square designed for you to go, you put your placards, you say what your problem is. In this country, people want to demonstrate, and they know very well Article 37 says that you are allowed to demonstrate peacefully and unarmed, but you find you go to Uhuru Highway, which is our major highway, and you block it. I've always given an example. You are bringing in your mother in an ambulance from Meru, you are just a few meters to Nairobi Hospital, she needs to be put in oxygen or ICU, you end up losing your parent just at the University of Nairobi or just in Thika Road, a few kilometers or a few meters to the hospital. We promote conflict. What we should do as a society is to be obedient to the law and minimize conflict, because the areas where you find police and the public fighting is because of conflicts, unnecessary, uncalled for conflict. So you find that when we minimize conflict, then we will be able to see very little of some of these problems. Like, for example, if you talk about Baby Pendo, you talk about what? You're talking about election conflicts. Conflicts not brought by police, conflicts brought by political parties. Okay. There are differences.
But here in Kenya, you see a police officer, you want to go the other side. And
yes, but you see,
a police officer,
but you see, that is what I'm saying. We have promoted conflict between us and the police, and therefore the police looks badly. But how come you don't run away from the police when you have a problem? How come you walk to the police station when you have a problem? You run away from the police because you find people just drink, and he knows he's drunk. And we are lucky in Nairobi, we now have Uber. And the bar where you are drinking, there's a parking. You still want to drive home, which in many other communities or developed societies, people don't do that. They understand they're not supposed to, they're not supposed to do that. Okay. So you'll be running away from police because you fear the police actions. But basically, if you are doing the right thing, you'll always move to the police. Okay. So what we are saying is that it is a collective responsibility. Okay. Our society is not so good. Let us agree. If we rate our society, even if you look at the way politicians are behaving, the way they are managing themselves, the way they are managing their colleagues, it's so bad. So what we are saying is that we must, as a society, develop, be people who are obedient, who respect the law. Okay. If we reach that level where we respect the law and we still have policemen causing brutality, then there will be something very bad. Okay. But it is not our wish also to see our officers in problems or causing problems to people. Okay. And I think we need to work as a society to ensure that.
Ganjo, when do we expect action on these other 46 officers who you're saying you're looking into?
Well, as soon as investigations are over, right now we are not able to determine who are culpable and who are not.
So you don't have a timeline?
No, it's not all of them that went out there and committed atrocities. But what I want to assure Kenyans is that we are already on the matter, and we are already carrying out investigations, and we will liaise very closely, even with the office of the IG, in order to bring all those who are responsible to book. But I also want to encourage Kenyans to come forward and lodge their complaints, so that even when we move on our own motion, we are able to invite them to come and record their complaints. Also, Kenyans should know that the government is vicariously liable for any atrocity done by an officer of the National Police Service, because that is what they don't know. Sometimes we carry out investigations, and even if we are going to pursue criminal charges against a particular officer, the evidence that we have on a balance of probabilities can get that Kenyan be compensated adequately in a civil court. And I'm looking forward for the day when the Solicitor General of this country will pay hundreds of millions of shillings to police victims. Until now, the National Police Service tells its members, no, we cannot go this way because we are spending too much money as a government, as a country. I think that is where we will bring down normalcy and make sure that even if the individual police officer is responsible themselves, the government generally also carries the burden.
I want to interject. I don't agree with Mr. Waiganjo that government should pay victims. I don't agree that Solicitor General should use our taxes. If the government should only pay victims, if by chance the officer was in course of lawful duty and maybe it is confirmed that there was no way he could have avoided this circumstance, then government can pay on his behalf. But what we should encourage is every civil servant to pay for his sin.
No, what I'm talking about is vicarious liability of government
what I'm saying,
use of their own firearms.
What I'm saying,
every police bullet must be paid for. Every police bullet used on
where we are not agreeing is that for us to solve these problems easily, if you throw, the moment you throw government to pay, you should know it is not government. It is you paying. It is your taxes. And that's why I say the individual policeman should pay, even if it means paying out of his pension.
There's already a budget for that with the Office of the Solicitor General.
No, but you see, what we are talking about, I know you know what you are talking about. But what I'm talking about is we should not encourage a situation where it is government to pay. We should encourage a situation where individuals, not just police, any other person should be able to pay for their sins. But there's something important, if you allow me a few minutes.
We'll come for the closing remarks, you'll bring that
This is not closing, but it's an important issue.
We are hearing
I think having sort of been the subject matter of a lot of Mr. Owino's comments, there are a number of comments that I would like to make. First, in relation to the incident where a gentleman poured, I think it was blood. I seem to recall, in fact, that our own executive director, Irungu Houghton, came to your rescue. So I think you were asking earlier whether Amnesty International Kenya and indeed other CSOs will stand.
How did he come to my rescue?
I recall a photo, which I will be very happy to share with you shortly after this, of him holding and sort of pulling you back at the time when the incident happened. The point being that for us as Amnesty International Kenya, human rights are not the preserve of civilians. They are not the preserve of those who are not in uniform. They are not the preserve of those who are not in public spaces. Human rights are the preserve of every single human being by virtue of being a human being. I worry also about the continuous conversation about framing police officers as D pluses. To use one criteria to measure the measure of a man or a woman and his or her capacity to contribute to this society is a very dangerous thing to do, because you measure it on the basis of a measure for which you have no context. And that is what exams tend to do. Police officers come and are recruited from different backgrounds precisely because it is all of these levels of skill, of experience, of knowledge, of community background that we need in order to have effective policing. And one of the things that I'm glad that the spokesperson has talked about is the levels of policing. We must address the ratio of civilians to police officers. We must address the issue of how our police officers are housed, how our police officers are transported, how our police officers are protected. We must address the issue, and it's been a long outstanding issue, on police housing within civilian communities, so that there is not this gap between police officers and civilians, but indeed so that we can continue to promote and maintain community policing. Here's the other thing. The numbers that he mentioned and said to me, you should also give us the numbers on the other side. Actually, it is the police officers who should give us that number, because those numbers rest within them. The numbers that I gave you are IMLU numbers for extrajudicial killings. These are what they themselves have investigated. This is the Independent Legal Medical Unit. In response, again, to the issue of social media as a use or as a tool for evidence gathering, beware as the media, as we sit here, of the bill that is now coming through, which seeks to censor WhatsApp. It seeks to censor social media platforms, whether they're private or public. Because if we allow that censorship to go through, we will not be able to see videos like those. We should be increasing the space for public participation in speech. Here's the other thing. For members of the public who are watching, and not just of the public who are not in uniform, but indeed even uniformed officers, I'm glad that the spokesman has said that the first duty of police officers is to promote and to safeguard human rights. All of us should be human rights activists. We may not be the ones who walk out onto the street, but however you can lend your support, we must, because this country is not the preserve of Mr. Owino or of the KNHCR or of IPOA or of Amnesty. It is the preserve of every single Kenyan, and we don't get to wash our hands off and say, wale polisi. It's us. And because it's us, we must not only hold them to account, we must hold ourselves to account, and we must hold our government to account for the regulations, the laws, and the policies that we have put in place and why they are not being implemented. Lastly, JKUAT owes us an explanation. It owes us an explanation for how did those students get to the point where they were so insecure that they felt that they needed to go out and protest. What is happening at that university? What is happening in Juja? What indeed is happening at other universities that has these masses of young, intelligent, virile, energetic young men and women feel that they have no recourse but to get out onto the streets? Let us not forget that when we have this conversation, because there is a question that remains unanswered right there. And finally, while we still wait for the names of these officers who were caught on video and all of the other officers who perpetrated wrongs in the name of these riots, we need to see the accountability go right back up the chain of command, right through, as the spokesman said, to the officer who was commanding that particular unit. It needs to be both individual responsibility, but also collective responsibility. And finally, the police must be treated as a professional force. They must be financed professionally. They must be held to that account, but they must also be facilitated with modern equipment and modern policing ways, so that we stop having police officers who look like they're still from the 19th century and we're walking into a 22nd century kind of society. It doesn't work one way. We can't point fingers at them without looking beyond them at what is going on that brings them to this point, and also looking towards us and saying, where are our contributions? JKUAT, we continue to await the report on the insecurity in that university that has led to this.
Mr. Charles Owino, do tell us what is happening in Juja, the insecurity there for the students to come out and protest, for their other colleagues, other students having to be killed and so forth. What's happening in Juja?
Yesterday, it was to the interest of the Inspector General to find out, establish why the students were demonstrating, what could have been the reason. And he mandated me to talk to the student leaders. So I had a meeting with the student leaders on behalf of my boss, the Inspector General. And they explained to me that their major concern was insecurity within Juja. And they gave about 2 reasons why there was insecurity in Juja. Number one, they said they had a problem with lighting system, security lights within the university. They told me there are 30,000, I'm not sure. But 30,000 is a very large population of students. So they said inside the university they have a problem of security lights. And they also said outside the university they also have a problem of security lights. And we went further to find out from the Minister for Energy on what solutions they could. It's not our mandate, but we said we need to avoid conflict. We needed to think loud and find out. He said no. Once the VC writes to us and tells us to install lights, we'll do it at our cost, but they have to pay for electricity bills. So that involves maybe a lot of budgeting from the VC. The VC would get to know whether it is possible. And equally, when it comes to the lighting system out, then that one is bestowed to the county government of Kiambu, which I think the county government of Kiambu must be very happy with Juja, university. I'm sure having that university and that population, it brings a lot of economic activities. In fact, I would say I wish somebody can carry it and take it behind my home. So what we are saying is that we have gone to that extent to establish the grievances of the students, and we are going to address it with the authorities. The police service is going to address it if it is possible. But there is one grievance which directly involves us. They say there are so many changa dens where people sell drugs, people sell changa, and issues of patrols. And I think that one, the IGP has addressed it. He's given very firm instructions to the county commander Kiambu and the command that they must raid those changa dens, and the students will keep on giving us more information. We must raid them and get rid of any changa den or where they sell drugs next to the university. I think if we address those two issues, then we may not have conflict. And for your information, for a very long time in history, JKUAT was one university that had never went on strike for very many years. I don't know when the rain started beating JKUAT. For many, many years, the students never had a problem. So we have had a discussion with the students, and we have known the main cause of
the insecurity.
But both the students, you know, mob psychology. When students are many, they are rioting, they get excited and they can do very bad things. And even one can pick a stone. So it is important also for the police to understand that this is mob psychology, these are students, and we must think of a very professional way of handling them. And always, the most important thing, many a times when you are aware that students are about to riot, the best thing is to make very good relationship with the student leaders and call them and talk to them. But I'm grateful they came and they told us they don't have a problem with the police. Though they had a conflict, but their main problem is the insecurity.
We saw you addressing them when they came to Vigilance House. I'll give you a moment for closing remarks. Samson, I'll start with you a minute each.
Let me speak to two things. One is that the state has the primary responsibility in the protection and promotion of human rights. I think that's important. But number two is that the police play a very central role in this, because the police are the most visible representative of the state. So wherever you go, I mean, you'll get the police everywhere. Now, atasema serikali sasa imefika. So one of the things I think we expect from the police is that we really want them to hold them to really high standards to ensure that this aspect of promotion and protection of human rights is taken seriously and is delivered on. I think that is important. Number two is, I think what is happening at KU should not be seen isolation in what is happening in the general society. The issue of insecurity is not just unique to KU, but I think to JKUAT, but all over the country we see incidences of insecurity. And it is because, I think, of the organization that we see in the universities, that's why the students are in a position to come out and air their grievances. I think we would expect more from the police to really deal with the issues of insecurity that are spread all over the country. But when all this is done, promotion, protection of human rights should be the cornerstone of this. I think number three is that the police need to invest much more on public order management. Our problem is not the law. We have a host of them. Let us move towards implementing them, and not piecemeal, but as a whole. Thank you.
Weganjo, closing remarks.
I would want to laud the ongoing police reforms that are already underway. And I want to say that we've come from a long way, and I want to encourage viewers to know that the police that we have today is far from the police that we had yesterday. And that is why I said that us, as a power, we are collaborating, because we need to use the police command structure to get even to inspect police premises. So I also want to encourage the junior police officers to come to us with their complaints, because they will be addressed instead of staying with their complaints with no leeway of who would address those complaints, because I think that is important. The house allowances was the housing project was a recommendation of IPOA, but I also want the Treasury and the Ministry of Interior to compensate and to give appropriate and enough allowances to our officers, because when we get them out there to live with the public and they cannot pay rent, it now also becomes another problem. And also the issue of law enforcement, because we have enough laws in this country. The problem is enforcement of those laws. On the JKUAT, I want to say that there was loss of command control. And therefore, in our investigations, we are not just looking at the officers who are on the beat, but also the senior officers who give command for that action to happen. Finally, and I don't want this point to get lost, I want Kenyans to know that the government is vicariously liable for any action done by members of the police service against them. So the individual member of the police service, yes, is liable, but the government itself has a budget to compensate victims of police brutality.
Police action. Right.
Renee?
I echo what has been said around the table. And in addition to that, I would address particularly us as citizens. Each one of us must speak up, must speak louder. It doesn't matter that you live in this illusion that we call the middle class, or you're from Madare, whether you are driving in a Benz, or you are still on your bike, or you are walking to work. It's time that each one of us, from where we are, speak up. We're running with Amnesty International Kenya a campaign called Ongeza Volume, Comrade Hayuko Sawa. I think it's time we all ongeza volume. Hatuko sawa.
Okay.
And until it's better for all of us, his colleagues, as well as my children, those who are watching, as well as those who have never accessed a TV, it is up to each one of us to speak up, to film, to record, to share, to report to the police, and keep talking about what is not working until we get it to work.
Okay.
Not as a protest against those who are not making it work, but for the betterment of this country.
Okay.
Ongeza volume. Comrade Hayuko Sawa.
All right. Jones?
Thank you so much. One, I would say that as a police service, we are committed to undertake our constitutional mandate to protect each Kenyan, and we do it every day. I would only love to ask Kenyans to try as much as possible to be very close to police officers. I say this at a very low level. If a police officer is posted to your village, it is important to get to know that police officer in your village, even know him by name, and keep on working closely with them, pass information to them. And in cases where you pass information and the police officer uses that information to eat ugali, you should pass it to us or pass it to IPOA to deal with him, because we want to improve our relationship. Kuna haja ya kuboresha polisi, not just in terms of their pockets and their welfare. Actually, the government, we have to appreciate as police. The government has put a lot of money in the police. The government has really improved the welfare of the police. I know we still need much more, but so far the government has done very well in terms of even, you know, for a very long time we were being accused of asking for fuel, but it was true. You could have the vehicle, but practically you don't have the fuel.
Right.
Currently, we rarely complain of fuel because, for example, the vehicles that we've got on lease, they come with the card, so we get the fuel. We have better vehicles. Even our officers on the borders, the government has paid for very expensive equipment, including the APCs, armored personnel carriers, the MRAPs, and so on. So government has put a lot of money, including our IC3 system, in which we can be able to see most parts of the country. So I think what we need is to develop a culture of embracing police. And I would want to say, where policemen make a mistake, yes, we must come out and say, policemen have made a mistake. But we must be able to be very careful so that we don't undertake a blanket condemnation. We should just come out. It's just like let's assume now in the community somebody has committed murder. We face that person who has committed murder and we deal with him. We don't say Kenya is bad, Kenya is rotten. No. So even us as police, we want a situation where don't say police is bad, police is rotten. Say Owino has committed this offense, let Owino face the law as an individual. So blanket condemnation is demoralizing our officers. Show love for officers, work with them appropriately, support them, and we are going to support you. And I think the future is very good for this country, as long as we learn to obey the law.
Brilliant. Charles Owino, police spokesperson, Renee Ngamao, board chairperson, Amnesty International, John Waiganjo, commissioner, Independent Policing Oversight Authority, and Samson Omondi, senior human rights officer, KNCHR. Thank you so much for having this conversation. We certainly hope we won't have it again, but that is most likely going to happen.
I mean, if we do it in a much more positive light, for sure. Hopefully
Absolutely.
the relationship between police officers and the Kenyan society improves, as what Charles Owino is saying.
Let's see what you're saying online. 22422 is the SMS line. At Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya, at Zinzi_K, hashtag Daybreak. Let's bring them up and see what you're saying. Lavish script, that's what you call yourself. I had a similar discussion about crime. There should be an app, or a phone penetration is huge in Kenya, where people can make complaints or give tips to security agencies anonymously. Is that something you're considering, Owino? An app whereby people can...
Already the Internal Affairs Unit has anonymous reporting system.
Okay.
A website.
Is it on phone?
Yeah, they have a website, but they also have, there's a system on phone system where you can report through an SMS.
Okay.
Anonymous reporting.
What's the number?
System.
What's that number?
I can't lie, I have it offhand. But I think we...
So what's the IPOA line?
You can complain online.
Yeah.
If you go to our website, you find all the numbers.
So
you can complain anonymously.
So they're phone numbers?
Yes.
Okay.
And you can use your phone to load that complaint.
Okay.
And you no longer invite us for topical discussions. You are only inviting us for complaints. You should improve on our topical discussions to be able to educate. No, we used to do that before, where we just used to come here to discuss on topical issues, to educate the public on how we expect them to work.
As Daybreak will definitely
challenge
take that
taken.
up.
We'll
Yes,
definitely have another
Don't wait
session
for offenses, criminal actions to occur. And then
Actually, since we're challenging one another, let me challenge IPOA to bring back the Outstanding Police Officer Award.
Outstanding Police Officer
Outstanding
Award.
Police Officer Award.
Absolutely.
Let's celebrate them as well.
Sure, I agree completely. The reason why we had a break is it was a relationship issue because we needed the National Police Service themselves to pick out the best officer and bring to us. So what they would do, the officers themselves would complain that that's not the best of them.
No. Let it be publicly voted as it was before. Let us give the feedback to the police.
I think that is not even the best formula. The best formula is every day we see activities of police. We should have a system where various good activities have been seen. You see, like football. We have footballers who are playing. But you know, sometimes when you say voting, we can decide to vote for a particular person. But if you pick on activities, like this year, I would give the DCI the best officer of the year.
You pick that up.
All right. But you sit there. Let's see. There's still more feedback. Let's read them really quick and we'll finish up with this. Let's see what you're saying online. Andrew Sule says, theoretically, IPOA was a good idea, but in practice, it's a toothless dog, a mere PR department. Many cases brought to them has never seen the light of the day. Let the police internal mechanism deal with the discipline. Okay, still on Twitter, use the hashtag Daybreak. Davey, you say police need better housing, better pay, and better working conditions. All you are seeing are the frustrations of the police force. The police should put their house in order. All right, let's see what else you're saying online. Nyasirwa says, that's pending hearing. It's not summary dismissal and being arraigned in court. It's taking them off till the pressure dies down. Clever move. In regards to whether the interdictions that are coming through, Stephen, you're saying refusing to name and shame those police officers raises more doubts on the action that has been said to have been undertaken. It's for the best interest of the nation to actually know those police officers, raise credibility and transparency. Okay, that was explained earlier on. Isaac Maweo says, ask Mr. Owino, what are they doing to offer counseling to all the police officers? They go through a lot of secondary trauma and it's being manifested through this brutality and other ways. Very briefly. We have a fully fledged counseling office with professionals. Okay. Yeah. All right.
I think specifically for the JKUAT students, for the students that were affected, we need to offer counseling to them. Okay. Because I think they were greatly traumatized by the events of that day. Okay. Yeah, so that's something the JKUAT administration should look into. Okay. Yeah. Let's go into
we too have a counseling department entirely well funded and well manned. So we can also offer that service.
All right, let's take a look at, still trying to finish up majority of the feedback, of your feedback. Let's continue. Karuti, you say the negative things are always popular. There are officers who acted according to the law but will never be recognized. There are students who caused chaos, but because of their colleagues who are brutally beaten up, their ill actions were overshadowed by sympathy.
All right. Let's see what you're saying on 22422. That's SMS line. Can you tell us your name and where you're texting from? You don't leave a name, but you say, my friends from IPOA should understand that riot control is a process and it starts with diplomacy, proclamation. I wish the spokesperson could clarify if the students could have stopped the violence. Upon hearing the proclamation, no police officer could have gone on with the control. At the end of the day, the police had to prevent destruction of property. That's where we have to leave it now because we're really pressed for time, but we do appreciate your feedback. Let's try and see if we can squeeze them in really fast.
Okay, Kibonda, watching from Kilifi, you say recently we lost officers in Wajir and we didn't hear human rights activists condemn that attack. Are police officers also human beings?
All right, let's see, you don't leave a name, but you say the police force should be treated as a noble career. Let's recruit on the basis of interest and ability to serve. For instance, having an aptitude test to determine the officer's level of thinking. This will help reduce unreasonable force used by the police. Okay, I'm just trying to get more of them. Amos from Eldoret, you're saying, I totally support the police spokesman on police defense. It all starts with us. The rioting students throw stones to armed officers. How can one officer arrest more than 50 students armed with stones? In fact, the interdicted officers should be taken through counseling and brought back to service. Okay. Student from JKUAT says the police have two sides. One, there are some policemen who are good. I have had a good experience from a policeman who helped me out at night when I got lost. Two, the police also have a bad side. I was arrested for no reason and wrong charges were placed on me. Continues to say the best way the police should have handled the matter was just to arrest the student, not beat up like they did. It is better to die on the hands of thugs than to die on the hands of the police who should be protecting us, the wananchi.
That's a feedback directly from a student from JKUAT.
Yep. Okay. Was in the thick of things. And that's where we leave it for now.